All right, welcome back to New Testament Survey as we're going to continue on our study of the intertestamental period. We're going to cover in this video the Maccabean Revolt and what that is all about. First of all, we begin with the Seleucid Empire ruling the area that we see as Israel, or Judea in this case, but primarily the city of Jerusalem itself. The Seleucids, under its king at this time, Antiochus Epiphanes. Of course, his name Epiphany means vision of God, so you can kind of see what he thought of himself. Really had a strong distaste for the Israelite people, and as he conquered them in 168 BC. You see, as he's trying to attack the Ptolemies in the south, or the Egyptian portion of that empire, Antiochus ransacks and plunders the Jewish temple for its gold, for its other resources. And at this time, in 168 BC, Antiochus not only plunders the temple, but desecrates it, sacrifices a pig on the altar. Of course, you know a pig from the Old Testament is an unclean animal, and makes a sacrifice to the god Zeus, to the Greek god Zeus. And at this point, Antiochus is considered public enemy number one by the Israelites. And I'm going to try to truncate this as much as possible for this video, but basically what ends up happening as he then issues a decree that no one is allowed to pray to Yahweh, to the God of the Israelites, and that all of them must pray to either Antiochus Epiphanes himself or to the Greek gods. And it's at this time that an elderly priest by the name of Judas Maccabeus is confronted with a problem where a Greek commander issues a decree that someone is going to make a sacrifice to Zeus, and a Jew without a name steps up and says, Jew who's unnamed, steps up and says, "I'll do it. I'll make the sacrifice to Zeus." And Judas steps up and kills him before he's allowed to. And this begins what's called the Maccabean Revolt. Judas has a number of sons, and those sons kind of end up becoming the generals who end up leading this revolt against Antiochus Epiphanes. And they go kind of a huge battle ensues. They retake the city of Jerusalem in BC 164. They then retake the temple itself, and they begin the process of cleansing that temple. And of course, the what's considered the miracle that takes place is they only have enough oil to light the candelabras, the menorahs, for one day, and the oil lasts for 8 days. Of course, we call that the Festival of Lights, or in Hebrew, the word Hanukkah. We celebrate that today, and even Jesus in the book of Gospel of John, chapter 10, says that he celebrated the Feast of Dedication. That feast is the Feast of Hanukkah, or the Feast of Lights, that rededicated the temple to the Lord. Now, this revolt under Judas Maccabeus and his father Matthias. I'm sorry, I may have said Maccabeus was the priest before. Matthias was the priest. His son Judas Maccabeus was the first general, along with his other four brothers, Simon, Jonathan, John, and Eleazar. They then become the kings over Israel, understanding that it's not the Messianic kingdom, and they become a kingdom of priests within Israel. So they both serve as high priest and serve as kings. The Hasmonean, or House of Hashmon, who is an ancestor of Matthias, then become kings of Israel. And it's really the one period in the intertestamental period where Israel is self-governed. It's interesting that, and this will go into our next video as we talk about the religious setting and the philosophical setting of the day, that the Maccabees began as a religious, as a fundamentally conservative group who believed in righteousness and believed in piety, who believed in wanting to dedicate the temple to the Lord and only speak Hebrew and those types of things. But as the Hasmoneans continued through time, you can see in this list, they all start out with Hebrew names like Judah and Simon and Jonathan. And then as they go on, John Hyrcanus, then you have Alexander Janneus. And he marries a Salome Alexandra. And you can see here throughout this that they begin to move away from their conservative roots and move toward much more liberal and progressive roots, accepting the Greek language, accepting Greek culture, and then by the end here, Alexandra, Alexandria, all of these names really coming into Greek culture, and they then have kind of completed that descent by the time Herod the Great comes around, which we'll talk about in a later video. It's at this time that these groups, these Pharisees and Sadducees, which we'll talk about in the next video, begin to fight one another. And that's when Rome steps in. When the Jews cannot get along between themselves, and they continually try to team up against each other. In fact, the Hasmoneans themselves even tried to team up with Syria. Of course, that would be the where Antiochus Epiphanes was from. Even try to team up with them against the Pharisees. It's that at that time that General Pompey, or Pompeius, steps in, and Rome takes over the city of Jerusalem. It's at this time then Caesar Augustus is the emperor and brings in Roman rule to Israel, and that's when we really see the New Testament begin. Is under Roman rule in Israel. Let me turn this over here. In 63 BC, Pompey took over Jerusalem, and then the Caesar Augustus declares Herod the Great to be king over Israel, and that's where we find ourselves at the beginning of the New Testament. And here's the Roman Empire during the time of the beginning of the New Testament. All right, that's all we have for this video. In the next video, we'll look at the religious and philosophical setting of the New Testament.